Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever or whenever you may be. This is the overnight. I am DM Foss, and with me is Baron SVG. How's it going, Baron?
I am fully equipped with two legs, so that is a good day.
He's back off the IR, ready to rumble. Uh, let's get the banner going, which there we go, that one. So at the bottom of the screen, there is an email and a link if you want to submit suggestions, comments, or pictures within reason. Those are two ways that you could do that. Um, or there's I forgot to put there's a Gilded overnight Gilded server, which I forgot to put the link in the description. I'll try and remember to do that.
The link is on the banner.
Link is on the banner. The link will get you to the Gilded server. It's another place where you can chit chat with other people, um, share memes, pictures, stuff like that, or get a hold of myself or Baron. Um, if you watch this in replay, leave a comment. Anything that we talked about, you think that we got right, got wrong, or left out, let me know. I always read the comments. And anything else? Am I forgetting
I only
anything?
read comments when I get called a communist. So,
So you read all your comments?
yeah, basically.
And while I'm thinking about it, the 31st, the New Year's Eve, uh, there will be an overnight, and we'll do some giveaways and probably be a year-end retrospective, um, and maybe give away some of the new. Just got these poker chips.
Pretty
Well,
snazzy.
they are. I'm really, really happy with these. One side is Baron, and the other side is the mouse. I've got a bunch of them. Some of them have the blue border, some have green, and most of them have black on the border. But so we'll give away some of those. Probably give away one of these, at least one of these. Don't be a salty bitch, Patch. Um, and one of the overnight deck of cards. We'll give one of those away, and some other stuff. Um, to be determined later.
I have a very cool prize in mind, if I'm allowed to give it away. I have to check with Foss first.
Okay, we can talk about it later.
Might be too spicy.
Uh-oh. But let's take a quick look, see who was out there. Two Live Moo was out there. Jet Double Out One, Gun Websites, Gizzard Gary, who Gizzard Gary will be doing a show in the morning. He does his chat Sunday. He has two chats, but he has a Sunday morning chat, 7 a.m. Pacific, which is 10 Eastern. They just usually no real set topic. They just talk about whatever they want to talk about. And if you're nice, you ask nicely, you might even be able to be on the chat itself.
7 hours from now, shouldn't he be snoozing?
Well, he's retired. He is officially retired now, so he can do what he wants.
So he's probably just waking up.
Um, well, he is retired and old, so no, he probably
It'd
just
be
couldn't sleep because he
2 a.m.
probably
Eastern.
yeah probably goes to sleep at like 6. Hits the 4 o'clock early bird special, goes to sleep about 6, gets up like 4 in the morning. Wesley Foster, um, talking about his progression. Started with the Yankee. Yankee is a gateway drug for guns and stuff. A lot of people come into the community through Yankee. Um, then moved to Never Enough Ammo, and then G23. and Honda and Flying Rich, and now here I am. That's close to the way it was for me too. Started out with Yankee, then Never Enough Ammo, um, then a bunch of them kind of at the same time. And Sergeant Joe Smith, and then some porn links. Gary says, I still have 2 more weeks of work. My coworkers threw me an early retirement party this past Friday. They figured I needed to do it before we got closer to Christmas party season.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations. I still have about 10 years. Then I can retire from the job I have now to find a part-time job. Hopefully Gary's not the kind that once they retire, they die because their job is their lifeblood. So
I don't think my generation's allowed to retire. That's what I've been hearing anyway.
yeah, we've got people like Gary to pay for. So
Yep. Welcome to Gun Websites.
Oh, how's it going, G-Webs? How you doing?
Fred to Midland, thanks for the link. Thanks for hosting each week.
Thanks for showing up. Two Live Moose says Gary can't die. He owes me money. I want my $2. So tonight, we're going to talk about gun buyback programs. And it was actually something G-Web said that got me thinking about it. And we'll talk about that part of it a little bit later. But they've been going on. They started like in the 70s. And in my opinion, I don't have any, from all the articles that I'm kind of referencing. There's links to them in the description, so you can look them up yourself. But they're all basically the same. They all say the same thing. They all use the same language. So I won't really reference them individually because there's no difference in anything they say. All the way back to the ones from the 90s to the ones that happened like in September. Everybody that talks about them says the exact same thing. And they're basically just a big PR thing. They don't do I won't say a bit of good, but one of the recent ones, there was the mayor of Richmond, Virginia, and this is kind of the attitude and what you kind of hear if you start looking at the individual buyback programs. But Richmond Mayor Levar Stoney said the motivation was to reduce the availability of guns and create a safe space in which people could transfer over their weapons. I would say that the buyback was successful because we know that every gun voluntarily turned over is one less gun that can be involved in gun violence, he says. And we know that we have way too many damn guns, not just in our city, but all across the country. And that underlines basically what these, I can't say the original inception was to do this, but when you look at every single one and all of the statements made for every gun buyback is basically this sentiment that it's not specifically to get guns used in crimes or guns that might be used, it's to get rid of all guns. Because when one of the things that I came across, which when I was just before I was going to bed, I was kind of thinking about going over my notes in my head, and one thing that struck me, and I didn't get time to look into it, but I think it's more recently the guns turned in are referred to as crime guns, and all of the guns that are turned in are referred to as crime guns, and that is a mislabeling. Uh, it's kind of they're using it as a PR term to vilify all the guns, and it's so there was it was 93 or 94 in Boston. Let me read this little, and I'm kind of jumping around chronologically, so but like I said, it's all the same, so it doesn't matter. But in 93 and 94, the Boston Police Department submitted 1,637 recovered crime guns to the ATF for tracing. 75.8 were handguns, 48.4 were traceable. In 2006, they submitted 554 recovered, again, crime guns to the ATF for tracing. In 2006, let me skip down a little bit. So the Boston Police Department did not examine ballistic images of any bullets or cartridge casings generated by test fires in the 2006 buyback guns. Thus, it is not impossible to determine whether any other recovered firearms had been previously used in violent crimes. So they are labeling all the guns turned in as crime guns, even though there is no proof, especially in this study, there is no proof that any of them were used in a crime, and that is basically just to demonize guns. They want everybody to turn in their guns, and they're using language so that it makes the guns look like they're the problem. And I'll go into a statement a little bit later. And I'm trying not to jump around because I'm not a good note taker. So, and either you two can comment as we go along as you feel free.
So I kind of see that as from a different view, because usually, as far as I'm aware, these are all no questions asked
Yes.
buybacks. So they can't ask you where you got it. They can't ask you who you are. They can't arrest you when you turn it in. So I would think them testing all the ones they get in would kind of go against the whole no questions asked, because they can't investigate anything with them.
Well,
so they'd be wasting money testing them.
I'm going to say no, because it is there. You do have anonymity when you turn in these guns in the buybacks. The only thing that was there were 2 points of data that were taken is basically male or female. Well, a few points of data taken. Not specifically who this person is, but male, female, white, non-white. And then there was phone polling that was done at different points in time. But if they receive a gun anonymously, because they're trying to track some of the statistics, doing a trace on that gun or ballistics for that gun, I guess now I kind of see what you're saying. Um,
Let's say I murdered someone
yeah,
with my own gun and they never found the gun and they do a gun buyback. I turn it in, the murder weapon,
yeah,
myself. I feel like if they ran a trace on it, they'd probably arrest me. Right?
yeah. No, I just realized that that's what you meant.
Yeah.
Um,
So, I mean, if it's really no questions asked, they got to kind of stick to that.
It is no
well,
questions asked because there's no evidence of anybody ever following through and arresting anybody from a gun buyback. So if you got, and what really happens is, let's say that was a situation that you killed a person. So that's one person, but in reality, a stolen gun is used by gangs like a library. So they'll hide their guns places, at least from, research and what they'll describe when they're, talking to people or, describing their activities or whatever. They'll have these guns that they use for crimes, murders and whatnot. They'll hide them in a stash house in a hole somewhere in a gutter or whatever. And then when they need them, they go grab them and they use them and then they put them back. So now they're going to do a buyback. They just tell somebody to go drop these guns off. So it doesn't matter whose prints are on it or who drops it off or any of that. And let's say that the police do a ballistics test on every gun. They're not, but if they did, then that gun would come up as like 6 murders on it. And they'd be like, oh my goodness, we just got evidence in 6 murders. What did that do for them? Absolutely nothing, because they've lost any chain of custody and they don't have any, it's useless to them. So the most they could do is like put a little caveat that like all these guns that we thought were the same, we found one time at a gun buyback and then we destroyed it. Or maybe they don't destroy it and put it in evidence, but they don't, they destroy them all. So yeah, so the police are creating a place, no questions asked, that criminals can dispose of their murder weapons. And that's what they are. That's what buybacks do. In addition to marginalizing ownership of firearms, suggesting that firearms are vice, giving the impression that the police have some authority over firearms, giving the impression that the government has anything to do with the financial burden of people's property. Do they buy cars from drunk drivers?
well, the one of the problems with the buybacks is they're not, the guns that are turned in are not guns used in murders. Um, I can't say that for in
There's no way to
general.
know that because
What
they don't check.
the problem, one of the problems is one of the things that they were able to look at is who's turning in, not specifically who, but the groups of people turning in the guns are older white males in more affluent neighborhoods. So that I think that was part of that came out of phone polling. So
Have you
it's
been to
not
a gun buyback? I've been to one. The only one that ever happened in Tucson. I went to that one.
that's
And I've
I
seen-
have not been to one, but this is all through what I've read.
Yeah, they
and
don't have them around here.
Yeah, they don't have
there
them very
was
often. Usually
there has been
churches
one.
do them.
There has been one or two in Seattle, but yeah, there was like one in '94, and that's
But I have seen video. I've seen some live streaming of them and stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying I've seen every single one or every single person, but it was a heck of a lot of old people, and it was not one gender. It was anybody who had a gun in their closet that they got from Uncle whoever or Aunt so and so,
yeah.
and they just don't know what to do with it. And they think that they're doing a good thing by handing it over to the police. You're right. That's most of them, and the concept would be said if they want to chat up that angle of it. They'll say, well, this is a gun that could have been stolen. So by
that
taking it
is
away from somebody who doesn't want it, we're getting it off the streets. But it's BS. So are they
that is
collecting old
that is
cars
one way
might
that
be-
the people try and defend that
That's the only that's a
buybacks
it's
don't work.
right. It's one way, but it's like but they're also not buying knives. They're not buying old shovels or baseball bats. It's ridiculous that they're going to collect up one.
That's one stat that I meant to bring, that I thought of just before I went to bed, and I of course forgot while I was sleeping. Was the cities that did the buyback trying to look at like murders, how are most murders aren't done with firearms, but getting trying to get the actual numbers to compare. But I kind of forgot because I thought of it too late. But yeah, the it's one of the things that came up in the articles is it's not the people that they're trying to target with the gun buybacks are not the people that are turning in guns. So they're not getting rid of guns off the street. They're getting rid of guns. The people that somebody that's had a gun or inherited a gun and now has a kid and doesn't want to have the gun in the house. So they're turning in the guns. Plus, just the number of guns that are turned in. Say like the Seattle one from '94. I think there was 1,700 guns, which sounds like a lot,
Yeah, it's not.
but today there are estimated like 300 million guns.
More. Yeah.
Yeah. So you get 1,000. A city gets 1,000 guns off the street, but one of the articles compared that to the number of guns in the same period that were bought, and it's like the guns turned in was like maybe like 2% difference. Well, you've got so many more that were bought, so and then they fall back onto, well, these were guns that could have been stolen. That most guns that are used in crimes are stolen. But and then it goes back to again reducing the number of guns in our community. Well, you're not talking about reducing the number of crimes done with. You're talking about reducing gun ownership.
Or reducing the causes that create violence.
That was the last link in the description that I put up is from the Mercury. I forget which city, and they talk about how gun buybacks don't work, but they are a little piece and this and that. Which I disagree with their point of why buybacks should happen. But the rest of the article, if you look at just the facts that they lay down, it's a good article to read for that. And I just found it just before we started the chat, so I don't remember exactly what was in it. But that was something that they had said.
Well, they need to make it seem like guns in society are a problem. So they need to make it seem like to solve the problem, they got to collect up the guns. But what they're not going to look at is how many, what do they call it when you get like a whole group of people together? You steal a couple of vehicles, you slam those vehicles into the walls or the front doors of a gun shop, and you all run in there and grab every gun in the shop or everything that's not bolted down. And then you run out of there and you sell those things to some cartel who gives you crack or whatever, meth, I guess, or what is it, fentanyl nowadays? Whatever drug of choice is that the people are fiending on that creates that whole cycle. That's where guns get out on the streets and all that stuff I'm talking about. They want to make it seem like granddad shotgun is the scourge of the world. And if it's in your closet, you're part of the problem. So they can virtue signal all the people that are like, that one gun that grandpa had that I don't know anything about, but it's actually interesting and was worth something. I've destroyed it. I did my part. So they're the worst kind of theater. They're the worst kind of like placebo because they champion all the stuff that would suggest that guns are vice or that guns are the problem, and that if you just remove the guns, people become peaceful. If you just remove the guns, people have no reason to fight each other or to cause harm. Like the only reason people are going to hurt each other is because it's so easy and convenient with guns. These are people that have never pulled a trigger. So their experience is that any gun, the word gun, just like any car, can be used to successfully evade police. Like that's their perception, that if a bad person can get into a car, they're getting away from the police. They've never driven a car. They've never driven down traffic. They don't understand how roads work. So in their mind, if a bad guy can get to a car, he's evading the police. And if they can think that they can, just not get any questions, if nobody bothers them about it, then they're accomplishing that at the churches and at the people that they're employing to like support the Brady campaigns and that kind of stuff. Like they're the people that they're giving those people something to do. They're occupying their time with a distraction in a negative way. So they're not just they're not doing any harm, so let's leave them alone. They're actually doing a lot of harm. I have a real problem with them. They're definitely bad, and it's not that they're ineffective, but now when, like what you just said, the 1700, I was farting around with the dog there, but I don't know how recent that is, but now that they've accepted 3D printed stuff, it's ridiculous. It shows how naive they are and how interested they are in spending taxpayer money to create the perception that there's a lot of guns out there. Because there's no possible way that 1,700 shotguns came in off the street. Because if someone did have 17 shotguns in their closet, which is the only way they get to that number, they have multiple people bringing in dozens of guns, that person's going to understand that they own a significant amount of money, that's worth something, that no one acquired 17 shotguns because they were all garbage, and they're going to take them to a gun shop. Now in San Francisco, where the last gun shop was closed down, and that's incredibly difficult, we might be talking about actual guns, but I bet you it's more like some kid figured out that he could spend $25 on a roll of filament and print out X amount of guns with zero infill, just the shell of guns that would qualify. And oftentimes they'll take a sear as a machine gun. So they'll take a piece of plastic that takes 15 minutes to print with almost no plastic in it, the size of no plastic in it. And they'll take that as a $300 machine gun. Now they can go to people and say, we pulled 1,700 machine guns off the streets. We spent $40,000 of taxpayer money to bring, and they're not going to say that they gave that all to two people who just printed.
That is something that I was going to touch on, because that's what got me thinking about this in the start of it. You had mentioned, I don't know, a while, but maybe last month or so, you had mentioned that about somebody making, I don't know if it was
$27,000 the first time and then $12,000 the second time. And I've watched both live streams with the actual people that did it. And they're just kids that were like, looks like we could make money. So I decided to print out, and I made $27,000. And the next kid was like, well, that other guy did it, so I did it too.
On the face of it, yeah, you're thinking, it's a poke in the eye of the government. But no, that's your money being spent on that. And that's it gives them a soundbite to go against guns, and they're wasting the tax dollars to do it.
Didn't that guy go out and buy a real machine gun with that money?
I don't think so. He was a little kid. I mean, he may have. I mean, he seems like he's a little kid. I don't know, less than 30, so he could have been old enough to buy one. But no, it sounded like he was just like you say, doing it to be like an official, thumb to the nose of whatever. But I don't know. Some people think you gotta illustrate the potential problem, but is that the problem, or did they set that up because they wanted that result? They being the police or whoever set that up.
There we go. A couple people came in, gun-toting pacifists, and Hillbilly Up, Caucasian Sasquatch. Good evening, everybody. I think that's who I saw. And I don't know if hopefully I said Sergeant Joe Smith. I think I did. But if not, then hello again. Wesley Foster. And if I missed you, say something again so I can say hello. I think I got everybody. Yeah, that pretty much all of the studies say that here, let me read a quote from one of the latest studies. Josh Horowitz is co-director of the Center for Gun Violence Solutions at Johns Hopkins University, which researches and advocates ways to prevent gun-related injuries and slayings. Buybacks don't recover enough guns to make a proportional effect, Howard conceded. However, they can be a way. See, this is the next sentence is the little sliver that they try and use to justify wasting all the money. However, they can be a way for communities to come together, build relationships, and trust. There is no harm in them. Even though saying you know, they will admit that they don't do anything, and then you get the caveat, but well, it's one more gun. Maybe it prevents one murder suicide. Oops, spider. Um, to justify spending how many thousands of dollars on something that isn't making a difference. And it's not when these are brought forth, they talk about they push them as getting the crime guns, but the guns being turned in are not the crime guns. And again, it's Virginia Mercury is the last article that I was talking about, because they go into what actually will kind of.
There you go. That's how you do it. Fuck them. Take their money, buy a Barrett.
Yeah, but where it's the failed policies of the city that are creating the crime problem. Somebody that has, if you have a job and you can make money and you have hope, those aren't usually the places where you're going to have the large murder rates. You look at where the buybacks happen, you look at the murder rates of the cities where the buybacks are happening, and then you look at they don't make a difference. The problem is what's going on in the city, not the guns itself, not the thing. It's the lifestyle.
And that, I think, is one of the things, right? They know that if you've done something that didn't work, are you going to go, oh man, like it takes a lot of fortitude to go, oh man, that didn't work. So now let's try this other version, or let's try this other way, or let's try a different style. Instead they're going to go, oh man, what we didn't work, but it's because of, what's the first thing that we can throw rocks at that we don't care about? Gun owners.
Yeah, and there isn't. Trying to stay on topic. Stay on topic.
Should we state the topic? The truth about gun buybacks.
Yeah. Is, I do believe that there is not. The problem in the urban areas don't get fixed because those in charge don't care if they're fixed.
Well, that would suggest that the people in charge have some sort of ultimate rule over it. They're definitely not helping, but there's also corporations that don't care, and there's other systems in place that don't care. It's not like there's one thing happening. So it would, so it's because there's not just one what's the call, like what I'm trying to say, there's not one reason, then it wouldn't stand to reason that there's one solution. So I don't know. I guess that's one of my other problems is they're gonna. Well, I guess they don't say that gun buybacks are the only, the one thing that'll solve it, but they're not even like a step really. They're more of a distraction.
It's it's a way to get
to a real solution.
A way to drive PR, be able to say we're doing something when you're actually not doing anything.
Right, but you're taking away, like, let's say, an old person's means of defense, right? Yeah. The thing that would keep somebody from busting in their house to steal their drugs. Instead, you're making them defenseless. So it's not like you're just doing nothing. You're actually hurting, right?
Maybe. I mean, that old person might have just given the gun up for free to the police department.
I'm not talking about the individual. Who cares what an individual? I'm talking about the perception of the youth who think old people are there to be fleeced versus old people may or may not have a gun. They may or may not be veterans. They may or may not be able to use this. That's what starts kids being brazen to say, you go bust into that house. If they keep saying,
I didn't know you were talking about that.
House, and then they are coming back, two of them or 2 out of 3 are not coming back from that, then they quit doing that. I'm obviously not talking about
I thought you were talking about the old person selling the gun to a gun buyback.
I'm saying in general, the buyback creates the perception that old people aren't going to have guns around. and that you got pretty much good odds of just busting into any old person's house who has drugs and potentially valuables, and probably nobody there, right? So it's just it's messed up. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to say that the gun buybacks are causing problems in the fact that they create the perception that this neighborhood's been cleared of all its extra guns. I don't think people are, we go back and forth on whether or not the criminals are busting in for the guns. I think they're busting into old people's houses because they think they're easy victims and they want their drugs, their painkillers, and whatever other drugs they can sell. I'm sure they can sell diabetes drugs or something else too.
Yeah. The only part of the gun buybacks, which I don't want to say I'm okay with, but I'm more okay with, is if somebody wants to get rid of their guns, they can they can turn them in if you want to turn them in. But
well, the thing is, there's always there's a standing thing with the police departments where if you don't want a gun anymore, bring it in. You don't want a bunch of knives anymore, bring them in. You don't want all these poisons anymore, bring them in. You don't want all these prescription drugs, bring them in. I don't know if it's
but they don't pay you.
No, you're right, and I don't know if it's no questions asked, but I'm just saying if someone was truly, I just want to get this off the streets. I don't want it here. I don't know how it got here. Somebody left it here. That tenant had it, and I found it. It's a shotgun or a revolver or something. I don't know what it is. It's not like you can't take those to every gun shop and say, I don't want this anymore, and they'll just take it. They might say, oh, this is garbage. You have to throw it in the garbage yourself. Or they might say, take it to another gun shop that actually deals in this. So it might be a little bit inconvenient, but I mean, I don't think police will come and get it for you. But I would suspect if an old person was like, I have a shotgun here and I didn't know where it came from. Can somebody come get it? I bet you they'd send a cop car over and get it for the old person.
There was a friend of mine had a friend who it was kind of in that situation. I think her husband died, and so she had all these guns and didn't. So she went to the police department and ended up selling them to one of the cops, all the guns and stuff. But she didn't know what to do with them.
And sometimes that's a bunch of $50 guns, and the cop is like, here, I'm going to give you $700 for these $300 worth of guns because that's a way that he can give an old lady some money, right? And then other times there's the unscrupulous.
Yeah, if I recall, it was more of he got a good deal on the guns, but she was able to get rid of the stuff she didn't want, and he was happy to take them, and it's yeah. Yeah, I sidetracked myself. But for the gun buybacks, so they don't do any good. They cost a lot of money. They cost the taxpayers money, and to justify it, the cities will say, well, we're doing something, or they'll say, well, we've got this many crime guns, which there's no evidence that any of them are crime guns. They just have that many guns that were turned in. And that's, over and over and over again. Each of the buybacks that I looked at said the same thing. There's no evidence that that it made a difference. There was maybe a couple that said they tried to look at the numbers and say, well, we saw this drop, but they don't, I didn't see the studies. So was there an overall drop in crime at the same time anyways? So the buyback, it was, now I can't think of the term I'm trying to think of.
Like if the buyback happened in middle of July, or whenever crime goes down normally for the year, anyway, like school's out or something. I don't know. Whenever crime goes normally down after Christmas, maybe.
Yeah. So it's a coincidental drop in crime, but they're conflating the numbers, saying, "Well, we did a buyback, crime went down. We're making a difference." Well, no. And that's all the studies I looked at pretty much said the same thing. that they do not do anything, but you're doing something. But you're not really doing anything. You're not addressing the problem at the core. The economic problems that will do much, much more than a gun buyback will. And then just, they are basically treating the symptoms and not treating the problem.
Yeah, they're definitely not doing what they set out to do. I mean, there's probably a few cases where it did what they intended, but 99%, of course, I'm just making that up, it didn't do what they wanted. They don't bug me so much because they're voluntary. And people are going to give up guns to the police department anyway for free. So they don't bug me that much.
Oh, they bother me a lot, though. Like I just said, I think they're creating a perception, and that's unwarranted and evil to some extent. But the ones that were, the one that was here, they promoted it a bit. I can't remember what year it was. I got video of it somewhere on YouTube. So whenever it happened, I have video from it. So they promoted it a bit, and then I would say, I mean, there's no way to even compare it to the line going into a gun show. It was like probably 50 to 100 people, if I had to remember anymore, that actually showed up to give away guns. And then there might have been 10 to 15 people that were there with signs saying, "Sell me your gun," right? Like, don't sell your gun to the cops. Give it
exactly.
To me.
Yeah, that's great.
And they were not bothering them because the police don't really care in Tucson. They were doing it because they had to, I think. But they were standing in line in front of this police station on the sidewalk, and then they kind of took the parking lot, the section of the parking lot was, kind of the police, I don't know what you call it, a big camper that they use for CSI or for like mobile command. I think it's a mobile command unit or something. It's like basically a big cop camper, right? They park the camper, put up a table, people would line up, they would look at the guns, check the serial number to see if they're stolen, from what I can gather, right? Checking it against stolen guns. And then if it wasn't stolen, went into this giant box. So you've seen that deal where they take like a pallet and they have the cardboard that goes up the side. So it's effectively a giant cube. They kept just throwing the guns in there, just throwing them in there. Here's the gun, throw it in there. Carry it like if it was safe, like you would carry a gun if you were like a 10-year-old carrying a BB gun who's never carried a gun before and you wanted to make your parents impressed that you were being safe. And then they get it to that box and drop it in there. So there was at least one python, a gold python, that was frustrating to watch get dropped in there. And then there was, I don't know. I mean, I got sick of watching, but it was effectively single shot shotguns and lever actions, like a decent Winchester. And then, it's hard to know. And then a whole bunch of just bolt action single shots, just tons and tons of bolt action single shots. I mean, it does collect pieces of wood with a cylinder on it, but to suggest that a 22 rusted shut bolt gun is anything more than gonna get some kid in trouble who's under 16 or something for being an idiot in the backyard or something. I don't know. It just, anyway, I that was what showed up there, and it was mostly old people, and I'd say a mix of male and female, just old people that were scared into thinking that their gun is the problem. You're doing something by giving it to the police, and then it was also, and I'm going to say it because this happened years ago. Remember when Bundy Ranch happened? It was in that era.
Yeah.
So it was a while ago, but it was at a time when I think part of it was, we need to know, we think that guns are so bad and that they're the problem. They are just the symptom of the people being so bad that if we do this, they're going to show up, and then we're going to be able to show everybody how bad gun owners are. And gun owners showed up and were like, "Hey, you're wasting your money. Don't sell it to them. Sell it to us. We'll keep history, on the planet, and we won't melt history, and we'll give you fair money for it." And then we just stood there. And they did one of those deals. It wasn't with us, but I could see how it happened. It kind of happened with us, but it was one of those attempts to show, if you imagine a parking lot with some people standing in line, and then on the other side of the parking lot, not a huge parking lot, but on the other side of where the cars are parked, some people standing with signs that said, "Sell us your guns," or "Don't melt history," stuff like that. if you stood looking at the people with the signs, you're going to see a bunch of people with signs sitting there, standing there with signs that say, don't sell them your guns, don't melt history, right? Like keep history, give us, we'll give you a good price. And then if you looked at it from behind, it was a bunch of people with ARs slung, guns on their hips, and staring down the people at the line of guns, trying to sacrifice them to the cops so that they didn't kill people on the streets, right? So they attempted to show from the angle of the people standing there that they were menacing the people at the gun buyback. So, so that part of it I got to see and I got to understand. And I could see that the police were doing it as a mechanism, like they're getting paid to do it. I think it was on a Saturday or something, so they were probably getting paid overtime, we figured, to stand there and do it. But I didn't know any of the police to ask them. But except for one who gave me the stink eye, everybody else looked like as if they, when the police have to do all kinds of horrible drudgery jobs, like, if they had to go scoop up cow poop off the street or something, like, they look like they have to do it. They're getting paid to do it, but they're not digging it. And I didn't want to, it was tense enough that I didn't feel comfortable to just walk over and go, hey man, like, hey police officer, do you feel comfortable about killing all these old guns, or do you have a feeling about this? Because I don't think it was appropriate. I think they were getting paid to do their job, and it would have just been a dick move. It would have been better move to walk up to like what it would have been the politician who forced it to happen and say, was it worth putting all these people on overtime and spending all this money to destroy, maybe $1,000 worth of value?
Yeah, they will justify their position. Yeah. Let me say hello to the bearded guy. The the thumbnail pic is actually from the Australian buyback, the large bin of guns, and that's when to try and justify buybacks, they'll look at Australia and use them in their data, which
that was a mandatory one.
Yeah, they're different societies, different circumstances, so they may not, so it's something you can look at, but it's not America. It's not the U.S. So I do not, would not trust the study. Well, I don't trust the study because I've seen what they've said about them. But in the Australian buyback, it was mandatory, and I think they said they've got the number somewhere around 1 million guns. One I saw, most numbers will say like 600 and just shy of 700,000. And then I've seen where it's, just over 1 million. So somewhere around 800,000 to 1 million, maybe, on the high end. And that's 20% of the guns. So only 20% of the guns, it's that 800,000 is a large number, but it's only 20% of the guns in Australia. And for the mandatory buyback, only 20% of the guns were turned in. And then they say, well, there was a large drop in murders or whatever, but I don't know. I haven't looked into the numbers for Australia's.
Yeah, they had a large drop in mass shootings. I think that was their big thing.
Yeah, but if
I think murder actually went up.
Yeah, the mass shooting thing, depending on what you use to qualify that number. Mass shootings are not a common thing. They will say, well, a mass shooting is, 3 people get shot. But they use those, if it's a gang fighting a gang, 3 people get shot. That's a mass shooting. Or it happens outside of a school. Well, that's a school shooting. Well, no, that's 2 gangs fighting. That's not a school shooting. That's not I guess it's a mass shooting, but it's not the crazy guy in the mall or the crazy guy at the movie theater that they use that number to try and scare people by saying, oh, mass shootings, look at this mass shooter. And then they take this image, of whatever, you name whatever news story, whether it's school or a mall or whatever, they'll take that picture and then add these numbers that aren't that thing. They are, two gangs fighting, and then take those numbers and then add them into this picture and say, well, there's so many of this picture. Well, no, it's not this picture. That's not what happened. And that's, they once again demonize guns rather than fix the problem of why these kids are in gangs.
They don't have gang shootouts in Australia, right? They just throw snakes at each other and spiders and shit, right?
They throw boomerangs and didgeridoos.
You ever seen Mad Max?
Oh, yeah. They'll run around in assless chaps and throwing boomerangs.
All chaps are assless.
Foss is the expert on that. My bad.
They'll kill you for a gallon of gasoline in Australia.
I think we covered pretty much everything that I had for gun buybacks.
I got a question about them.
I'm all over the place here.
Oh, go ahead.
So like, what type of people are going to these? You got people that they got a gun they don't want, they want money, right? You got that. You got anti-gunners that hate the gun they have. They don't care if it's a $15 dog gun. They're going to sell for $200 because they know it's going to get cut up. And you got people that, what else? Criminals that want to get rid of a gun. I guess that happens.
You get people that are forced by criminals to be there. You've got people that are desperate for money, so they're going to steal guns. There's always a crime rate, a stolen gun increase right before a buyback because people some old people
that is one thing that
steal them so they can get rid of them for free.
That's one thing that a question that I thought of while looking at in the reading where somebody was saying that this isn't targeting the groups that they should be, because it's mainly the older white affluent people turning in guns. So the way to fix that is to increase the money paid for each gun. Well, is that just going to increase the number of guns stolen just before the buyback if you get more money for the guns?
Maybe.
I mean, it can, and then at least it creates an incentive. And then, but then you get the criminals who used them for murder and for other reasons that want to get rid of them. Then you get the whatever you call 3D printers who just let's say you got an anti who wants to make a bunch of money and make it look like there's a bunch of guns on the street. So now you're facilitating paying antis. Now you got somebody who doesn't care. They're just a 3D printer and they want to buy a bunch of new printers. They find out that this is an avenue to make money with their printer. And then you got people who are 3D printers who make guns so their hobby. So now they can take every bad print they've ever had and make $350 or whatever stupid outrageous price depending on the place. All this is taxpayer money. Yeah. But going back to who goes to these things, I don't think they haven't suggested who they target. And since they won't, it's part of the whole scam is to not record who shows up. They're never gonna be held accountable. They'll be able to say, "Oh, it's anonymous." It's like it's a perfect scam if you want to perpetuate a system of keeping guns persecuted or demonized or whatever you want to say. Again, they're not doing it for knives. Where's the knife drop-off box? Or where's the vending machine where you drop a knife in it and it gives you it scans the knife and gives you an appropriate amount of buyback money.
Do we have those at SeaTac? Am I crazy? Don't we have like right before the security checkpoint you can throw like a knife in a can?
Well, you can have those at the airport or something.
Bins, but I didn't know if
for it.
I thought it was just where if they take your stuff, they dump it in the bin.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know they have them for like the water bottles.
Yeah.
Your water bottle's too big.
So, how do we get rid of these? Like, you could show up there, offer to buy guns that are worth more than they're offering to pay, right?
Oh, well, that's another person who shows up at buybacks is the people that are going to try to buy guns. So pawn shops and just interested collectors and interested Second Amendment activists. Other people are going to show up for people like me. interested press and activism
You
activists
do
who
have
want
to
to
kind of be
illustrate it
careful
and archive it.
if you're going to do that. There have been people arrested um, for doing that. So
What if you buy a murder weapon?
Yeah, seriously. There was
Or you
a
buy something that was stolen?
I don't remember anybody getting arrested. I remember a time when there was a, you know what an AT4 is? It's a single shot. It's like it will replace the law. So a law is the one that everybody remembers from Rambo. It's a
yeah,
small recoilless rocket launcher that
little.
expands.
Mm-hmm.
It was used in Vietnam. The one next, the bigger one than that, is essentially the same thing, except that they made it really, really difficult to destroy. Because of that, they exist. You can buy the old ones. People think they look super cool, right? They do. They look like a rocket launcher or whatever. But they're just a hollow fiberglass tube. And it couldn't be more obvious to anybody who isn't an idiot that it's a hollow fiberglass tube. And a hollow fiberglass tube is not a rocket. It's the tube that's disposable around the rocket. So one of those went to a buyback, and a guy bought it. And that guy went home, and they followed him home and said, "Oh, about you bought a rocket launcher." Like, yeah, okay, whatever. You buy a rocket, which would be super heavy and need all kinds of support equipment, come in a big giant Pelican case. Nope, I bought a shell of a rocket. So I remember that. That was many years ago. But I've had
Two Live Moose said my pinky is a murder weapon. That's one of the things that we used to do with new black belts, the ones that were a little more gullible, is you tell them they have to register their hands because they're now deadly weapons. And you would actually get, some of them would believe you, and then they'd get worried about it. I used to tell people that I had to register my hands just so I could put them in my pockets because they're concealed weapons.
I got an idea. Why doesn't a Pro 2A organization do their own gun buybacks where they offer like $200 for a shitty gun and we can get them off the streets that way and they won't get destroyed? You can save history.
What?
So Pro 2A buyback. To get these people that would have given their gun away for free to the cops anyway.
No, they should do that. Then it's been done before. There was a place in Texas in maybe 10 or I think maybe 10, 11. It was around 10 or 11, 2010 or 11, that was providing shotguns to poor people. And they were effectively doing that. Like, we need shotguns for poor people. And if you want to sell us your shotguns cheap, we'll buy them for $50 and give them to poor people. So they weren't looking for like Mossbergs. They were looking for single shot ones, the exact same stuff that we'd be going to a buyback. They were really redistributing them. That's the one I can remember that made kind of news in Dallas or Texas at least. And I hope that it's happened in other places. But you're right. There should be like what's that thing called? Antiques Roadshow. Remember that? There should be an Antiques Roadshow. And they go, hey, we're going to have, and this should happen at every gun show, and it could happen at any gun shop at any time. It could be on a regular basis, and it should be something that's, we're going to have a Stop the Bleed class. It's a 1 hour, and it's going to show you just how to stop people from bleeding. We're going to have CPR classes for anybody who wants to learn how to keep people from choking. And then whatever, like, don't be a victim, that kind of stuff. And then Eddie Eagle and that kind of thing. And then, or, fill in the blank with Kid Safe or Faster Saves Lives, if you don't like NRA. But, have those kind of things available on some kind of a safety day. And at the same time, maybe in a different physical portion of the thing so that nobody has to be concerned about live guns being near all that education and safety and awareness stuff. But then have people bring guns into another entrance or the other side of the building or something to do like a appraisal / drop off and a fair buyback and call it like, something legit. Like, we're not here to create fear. We're here to be capitalists and help you make sure that you get these guns either to collectors or to somebody who can appreciate it. Like a young kid who's learning how to shoot, or a family or something that needs it for whatever they're doing with it, or some kid or I'm not saying kid, but somebody in the military needs it to train or practice, or maybe just another old person. Maybe you can give it to some old person you don't know that's just looking for a hobby. Maybe they were going to clean this thing up and teach some kid how to gunsmith or whatever. We forgot about gunsmiths. Gunsmiths are up at buybacks all the time because they're not stupid. They want those old broken guns for their school. Actually,
That's
We-
not.
12
Yeah,
guns.
I like that idea.
We would have to have like a rule, like nothing homemade, nothing 3D printed, nothing like built from
Well,
Home Depot pipes.
the
Otherwise, you could have antis
there should-
showing up, selling those,
There
taking
you
all your
couldn't-
money.
I'm
You
all
couldn't-
about that, but have it as a section. You don't get paid for it, but you can win a prize for having the coolest or the most interesting.
There you go. Have
Yeah,
a contest.
you can't. You couldn't do it as an anonymous buyback though. As a private group, just because if it is a gun used in a murder or stolen gun, if the police are not, if the city or police are not in on what you're doing, then you have now just bought a gun that it was stolen or used in a murder.
Well, you'd have to do it just like a gun shop. They run all the
Yeah.
serial numbers that come in.
Yeah, that's
No,
what I'm saying. You
a gun
can't.
shop has a what do you call it, a responsibility because of their their FFL license. They have to do that, and because they're probably a small business or a business in the town, they'll have an obligation, and something like serial number or $1,000 or greater in value, they're going to have to run it. But as an individual, I don't know if you'd have that. You might have.
Oh no,
to have
not as not a private sale.
But if you'd have individuals, just like imagine when you go to a gun show and there's like somebody there checking your guns with the zip tie or whatever. You have people sitting at a table, and it'll be like, Bob from such and such gun shop, or Sandy from such and such gun shop, or whatever. And then you'll just walk up to that person, or maybe not gun shop, but Bob, the Civil War collector, Tony, the the cowboy collector, Lucy, the World War II collector, whatever. And then you'd walk up to the appropriate table, and then you'd go, hey, what's this worth? Or what do I have here? And then they could tell you like, hey, this is such and such, and I don't want it, but I'll bet you I can show you 4 people that would want this. Let me make a phone call. And then it would just be individual to individual. And I hear what you're saying, but I don't think the crime, one thing.
Well,
We're
as
talking like
when I say individual, I don't specifically mean you or me. I mean anything that's not a government agency. As individual.
It's like if the NRA
Gun
was
shop.
buying guns back.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I guess I was walking over there, but I was just saying that I don't know if we would have to, if you set something up like that, you'd have to be responsible. Not all guns are stolen. Not all guns are crime guns.
No.
And
But the
most
problem
regular
is
people
if
aren't
one of
worried
them
about it.
were.
Well, what's the problem? If you went to a gun
What
show, and you
the
bought a gun,
liability?
there's no
because now-
liability. If you went to there's no liability in owning a gun. If you go
No,
to a
no.
gun show and buy a 1911 off of somebody, and it turns off it was a crime gun, are you a criminal?
No,
you don't- how
I'm
are you
not
gonna-
what I'm talking about dealing with this with
I've never dealt with this before, but
if a city does it and they say no questions asked, then there's no questions asked. If you buy one and then the state looks at that gun for some reason, any reason, you now have a gun that is
stolen.
was stolen
Yeah.
or was used in a murder. So you are now liable for buying that gun. And I'm not saying you're going to get in trouble. They might just take it, but
Yeah,
that
they
it
are
now
gonna take it.
becomes
You lose your money.
a
That's all they'll
possible
do is
liability.
Yeah, that would be a loss, but it wouldn't be.
Yes.
But you're not going to go to jail for it. You're going to lose some money. That's all. But I hear you. Okay, you're right, and that's what happened. And I think you could say we're going to set this thing up or whatever, and when all the guns come in, we're going to take them to the police station and we're going to run them. So you just tell people right ahead of time, we're going to be running
Well,
every serial
see,
number on these guns.
That's kind of what I meant by it not being anonymous. Is the guns have
Well, if you were
to
buying them as
protect-
an individual, you'd be crazy to take them anonymously.
yeah.
I'm saying you have to emulate their dumb naivety. The reason they do them anonymously is because they want that whole complicated scenario of crime guns coming in and all that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, if you were going to do it as a appraisal what is that thing called? The Antiques Roadshow. Yeah, I would definitely not incorporate the no questions asked. We'll take any guns, no matter what. Like, and we'll give you $50. Like, no.
So Bearded Guy asks, how would you approach someone wanting to just look into getting guns? And before we address that specifically, that's one of the things that I came across in reading the different articles is when they talked about the one article talked about reducing the number of guns in a community.
Get them off the streets, as they say.
But the problem was the gun culture is bringing in new people. They saw that as a problem. Then that's what is is why there are people are getting more guns. Is the gun culture is teaching other people over. Is bringing other people into the gun culture and then proliferating the number of guns. They saw that as a problem rather than being, to me, that's yes. If I talk to somebody else, I'd love them to get into the gun culture, to understand guns, to own guns, to responsibly use guns. That was just something that's, to me, stood out is the way they looked at, the gun culture is a problem. With the gun culture isn't a problem. Using a gun in the wrong way is a problem.
Well, they see it as like another country got nukes. Uh-oh. That's the way they're looking at it, right?
Yeah. So for Mad Sexy to answer his, just introduce them. Take them out to the range,
Yeah, I take them to an indoor that has like rentals. That's pretty fun.
That's what that's what I do. Is I'll take them to the indoor range, and then I'll take some of mine, and then while we're there, I'll look to see what they have currently to rent, and then we'll rent different styles of guns for them to try out, and make it fun. Make it safe, but make it fun. Yeah. Everybody I've taken has a fun.
Don't give them a single shot. That's no fun. Unless they're like 4.
So I still got stuff over in the notes there about buybacks, but are we talking about?
Oh, no. Yeah, we can keep going. I just wanted, that reminded me of I wanted to bring up that part about the, what I had read, what somebody had said about gun culture, and then,
well, basically, Bearded Guy is asking, how would you approach someone wanting to just look into getting guns? He doesn't mean at a gun buyback. He's just talking about in general.
That's the way I
think so.
So I'm going to offer different advice. Nobody ever asked me. Lets me answer very often. So 1, you got all the time in the world, and you're allowed to ask them questions. So don't assume a bunch of shit. Find out what they're interested in. If they're interested in cowboy guns, or they just want to know about the one gun from a movie, you could be spending a bunch of time and effort on something they're just not at the moment interested in. So get practice. You're not going to be perfect the first time, but I would recommend chatting with them a little bit, finding out what they're interested in. Now, hopefully you already have something in that realm. Let's say they say, I'm interested in revolvers. What makes a revolver different than a regular gun or something? Who knows what they're going to ask you. They might have seen something at any time in their lives, and they feel like you're the person that they can ask. So first thing is open up a gun and say, hey, we're going to look at this gun here in the house or here in the garage or whatever. We're going to go to a park or something. We're going to look at this gun wherever it's appropriate. It's unloaded, and we're going to just look at it. Take it apart, show them how it works, show them the interesting parts about that gun. If you got more than one gun, don't overwhelm them. But if you can get like less than 3 options that give them some real insight, right? Because if they ask about some dumb thing because they're new and they don't know, and there's something adjacent that's really cool, then, show them like, hey, you asked about a Jennings, but here's a 1911, you asked about a fancy old West revolver, and here's a Python, just to kind of, let's go shoot. You want to go shoot it now? So then, rental and all that. But you also have the opportunity to take them to, like, if you got an outdoor ranges for some people are better than indoor ranges, right? So don't whatever. Like again, figure the person out. But I was going to say, if you go to an outdoor range and they're the kind of person that's down for that, and you can go there on a weekend, you don't have to just go straight to the bench and start showing them everything you know about guns. Go there and be a spectator and enjoy it. Walk in and show them how the range safety rules are. When's the last time you read the range safety rules? You probably don't even remember. So read the range safety rules, experience the range with them the same way they're experiencing it, and let them ask questions, and don't overwhelm them. Let them ask the questions and succinctly answer them, right? Go in there and watch somebody do a competition if possible. Like a GSSF match would be the best because, like it or hate it, it's the easiest, funnest matches to deal with. They only come around once a year usually. But if that's something like that's available, if not, go to a match that's little and old people or people that are just there to have fun, not like a bunch of competitors. Because when you watch like Formula One, it's different than watching a bunch of people drag race, right? So go watch some people drag race. Just watch some people having fun shooting, but not just shooting, but like having a competition so that they're there and they've got some kind of goal and they're getting stuff done. Or maybe just watch some people practice if it's an off day. Once you've taken apart guns and once you've gotten some accustomed to the culture, take them to a gun shop and make sure that that's the gun they want to go shoot. And if you're only going to get that one shot, prep for it. Don't just assume that you're going to show them an AR-15 and all they cared about was a revolver and you turned them off of guns. That people don't even think about this. Take them to a gun shop that you know and that will tell you can say, "Here's my friend is new to guns or she have never shot a gun before," and you think you like fawning over people and giving them guns to take apart, unless their gun shops are a-holes and they're super busy. You know what I mean? They're going to be like, "Oh, you're new to guns? Here's whatever you've ever seen in a movie. We got it here, right? Now go shooting with them." That person knows the gun. They're comfortable with it. At home, show them how to clean it if you want. Like, "Hey, I already got this gun dirty from last time. You want to clean it with me before we go? Here's what Ear Pro are going to be like. Put them on now." Don't make everything their first experience at the range, right? Get on their Ear Pro, get their Eye Pro. You can do watch one of these introduction to guns types of things where they go through the manipulations and stuff so that people are familiar with how the gun works. Throwing all that stuff on them while they're shooting is setting yourself up for a less than opportune situation. So go
Have a good night, Squatch. That's one thing I do with if somebody has never touched a gun. We'll spend probably at least an hour here in the garage with the unloaded gun, and I'll show them, this is a semi-automatic, this is a revolver, and then let them hold it, an unloaded gun. So, this is a very controlled area. There's nobody else here. There's no ammunition here, and so, they can kind of see it first, and then I'll talk them through the differences between a revolver and a semi-automatic and what those terms mean and that kind of stuff. I'll go to the indoor range. It started partly because that's where I had my membership, was at the indoor range. But
yeah, same.
The range I go to it's only a 6-lane range, so it's fairly controlled. And I understand what you're saying, and I'm not trying to dismiss. I'm just saying that that's why I usually go to the indoor range first. And then now that I have the membership to the outdoor range, then I've started taking people out there to do rifles and larger stuff. But no, I agree that I thought those are good points. But yeah, to try not to overwhelm them at the range, we'll go through where it's just them and myself, here, so they can kind of look at stuff, kind of touch stuff, and they're probably not going to get comfortable with it if they've never touched a gun before, but they get to touch it there where there's no noise, and it's just the two of us.
And they can ask the questions and not have to worry about somebody overhearing them and going, "Oh, can't believe he asked that question. I can't believe she didn't know what that was.
And then also, remember that if you take somebody that's brand new, maybe they've looked up stuff, maybe they haven't. So if they call a magazine a clip, who cares?
Yeah, don't be an asshole.
It's what they're talking about. If they call something wrong, unless if it doesn't need to be corrected, don't worry about it. As long as they're able to use the gun safely, that's fine.
I had a guy working at the gun shop correct me. He's like, "That's a magazine." I'm like, "No, this is a M1 Garand, and that's a clip." Shut the fuck up. God damn.
If you look at the old like Army manuals, they will call a magazine a clip.
Yep.
So as long as you know what they're talking about.
Yeah, you don't always need to be right.
Yeah. If you go into it where they're not having fun, they're not enjoying it, they're not going to want to do it again. That's kind of what
you can ruin it.
Chief was talking about.
And he made a great point. Don't just drop him into the deep end and give him an AR-15 when they might not be cool with that. If they want cowboy guns, give them cowboy guns.
I'm going to continue to petition for being accurate. So when somebody's wrong, it doesn't cost nothing to go, no, it's a magazine. You don't have to be a dick, but you don't have to let them be an idiot. And now they go around and then the person does get embarrassed when they call it wrong. And then you were the one that didn't look out for them. So I say accurate things, and I'm not going to go out of my way to, like you're saying, if somebody's brand new, but at the same time, you can come up with an opportunity to say magazine and not have to correct them, but you can say it correctly in front of them, because most people that are in the act of learning are absorbing that kind of stuff. And you're right, you don't have to be a dick, but at the same time, I think you're better off being accurate with people, and there's a reason to be accurate. It's because they use inaccuracies against us constantly.
Yeah, there's a right way and a wrong way to do that.
Yeah.
Big time.
But it's not about being right. It's just about like, hey, let's not let this person just start off with bad habits. You wouldn't let them start off with a bad safety habit either. But at the same time, you don't have to be like, oh, no. Like you're holding that empty gun incorrectly the first time you held it. You're not going to do that either. But anyway, going back to the buybacks, I think that one of the cool things was back in Illinois, before they got to TCW, so this would have been 15, 14-ish, 13, 14 probably, something like that. There was a buyback in Illinois, and they hadn't had one in a while, so it was happening. Oh, maybe this was right around that era, and they hadn't had one in a while, and everybody was kind of doing stuff on YouTube, so we knew about, everybody was getting into the whole like community of YouTube, and everything that was news was going around. So I don't know if you remember this one, but I think it was an entire club had been donating their broken guns to when, the next buyback would happen. And I can't remember if they intentionally waited for the best deal on the buyback, but whenever they got the buyback for like $100 gift certificates or whatever it was, at the time, that was a lot of money. It was a lot more than most buybacks at the time. Most buybacks were like 50, and this one was like 100 or something. And it was, I think they went from like central or southern Illinois up towards Chicago area to participate. And they went up there and they brought them all these broken guns that the club members of like, the such and such rifle club in some town or whatever, some range had a rifle club. So over the years, they had collected all these broken guns, brought them to the buyback and got all these gift certificates, and then equipped their junior, like the kid shooting team, with all new guns. And that was like, they made a big deal about like how the buyback bought their team guns. And that's when it became part of the lexicon or part of the conversations. What about buybacks? Because right away people were like, oh, right on, that's perfect. And at the same time, it's the internet. You're going to get people being like, that was government money. What are they doing? They should have said no buyback instead of let's lean in and take all that money from the buyback. Now, some people will say if it's like church money, then fine. Like, or if it's some organization like Brady's money, great. But if it's government money, no. So it's, that kind of stuff started coming up. And now this is 10 years later. I don't know how many buybacks have happened in that time, but they're honestly not that big a thing. Like, you don't hear about them too often. They don't work. And I don't think they get much mileage from them. I think they do them out of desperation or out of like inexperience. So like a new breed of politicians will come in and they don't remember, they haven't had a buyback in their area, so they don't know how useless they are. They'll have one and then go, oh, it was nothing but a black eye. Like, then they won't have one again.
So
Yeah, the
yeah,
last one I heard about was in Florida, and Big Daddy Unlimited got shit on their shoe for participating in that.
Well,
That's the
yeah,
last one I heard about.
yeah, exactly. And that one was kind of bad again, black eye, right?
well, there was
There was those two in New York that we heard about. I don't know what chronologically which ones of those were first. They were all this year though.
Yeah, it was
there,
around the
there
same
was
time.
one in September, and I think there was another one where close to that too. Um, I don't know how many total there have been, but yeah, I don't think there's been a lot, and it's probably just they need to, they need some PR. They need to be able to say it, hey, we're doing something, so that they'll throw a buyback out there.
You think they do them in
Well,
election years?
that would be an interesting thing to look at, right?
Like a DA's running for election again and throws a buyback a few months before November.
Have a good night, Matt Sixing.
So the last thing I had was that when these New York ones, right? The first one was $27,000 for bringing in AR Sears. So a little contraption that's just barely a piece of plastic. It takes the place of a paperclip or whatever they usually put in there to make
Coat hanger.
Yeah, they just twist up some metal. Normally, it's a little tiny, insignificant little part, but it can create the ability for a semi-auto AR to basically skip or whatever they would call that and trip the sear, whatever it's called, and then shoot faster, full auto effectively. So what would normally be a non-transferable, a non-registerable, modern-made NFA item, which can't be created according to the Hughes Amendment, they're accepting those at a $350 premium. So I don't even understand how that works, that they're able to accept something that's federally illegal because there's no questions asked. So
Yeah, that's what's doing it.
Sense, right? But I'm just saying, like, they're setting it up to be this like weird phenomenon zone. Why would they allow that? And then they got burned for $27,000. You would think that a state that isn't just completely oblivious would go, oh, that's a lot of money. We don't need to do that. And this, we got played. Unless they mean, is it possible? There's no possible way that, especially since the person was on the internet saying, I saw this as an opportunity and exploited it, as opposed to, some secretive thing where they just got him and might have thought that they got an underground, like somebody flip sides on an underground, machine gun racket. But anyway, so New York spent $27,000 to get these hundreds of things, and then they did it again. So to me, it seems like it is taxpayer funded. What do they call that? It's like they're seeking out evidence to use against gun owners, and they're going to say that gun owners have the guns that these things can be used in, and there's a reason to get rid of AR-15s because there's so many. These sears are so prolific, or 3D printers have to be banned. I mean, they're setting this up. I don't think that they're so stupid as to keep spending money on something like this. They set it up in the first place in order for this thing to be exploited. I think that it worked better than they could have possibly imagined, having people bring in $27,000 worth. They're probably hoping, or at least aware, that some might come in. But when they repeatedly get tens of thousands of dollars worth, that seems like they're setting themselves up to take action, right? Like they're trying to create precedent or trying to set the stage for something.
Yeah, that's the That's G Webs. He had veggie burritos.
Yeah.
That's a little
Um,
puppy.
Hancho Fett was saying Houston had a buyback in October,
Okay.
and they will no longer take 3D printed firearms.
So 1,200. I won. Is that what it said?
Yeah,
1,200 collected. Oh, it
yeah,
says
and
right.
he broke down um, the numbers.
Revolver 368, semi-automatic 279, shotgun 243, nice. Rifle 227, semi-automatic 91. So they didn't say where 3D prints fit in. They're probably under pistols, semi-automatic handguns. See, I wonder if they'll take, like, let's say you're printing something and there's an error in the printing. So you're not going to complete it into a gun. It's just going to look a lot like a gun, but it's not going to have any of the metal components, right? Or
Yeah.
maybe you've got broken metal components, so you put some in there. So are they going to take those shells?
It sounded like they took them this time, but then aren't going to take them in the future. I think.
Or what's that SIG that has the modular chassis and then you just wrap a grip around it? Or
The P320 and the 365.
so if you took a bunch of those without the guts, just the $35 shells, could you take a bunch of the ones nobody wants, like a bunch of ones from the police department or something that were like, lame and nobody wanted them? They all swapped them into the smaller ones or something. And, not the guns, but the receiver bodies that cost $30. Could somebody take those in and would they accept them? I bet you.
I think they're
I bet you
pretty
took them
expensive,
10
though.
buybacks. Oh, they're more than $30. Okay.
Yeah, I was looking at them. Cheapest I found them was like $300, but
Okay.
you might be able to buy the 80% ones where you like Dremel out the holes yourself for cheaper.
Well, even those I think cost more than what a buyback usually is, I think. But again, if you buy a 3D printed kit or an 80% kit and you screw it up, can you take that to the buyback and get $50 for it, and then they count it as a ghost gun?
Like you buy an Anderson receiver for like $60, you take it to the buyback and you get $200 back. Is the ATF going to come after you for buying and selling guns for profit with the intent to sell?
That's a good question. You can't, because it's no questions asked. But you're right. Like IRS will get you. Like no questions asked on the guns. But as far as the IRS, we got 3 agents here, so you just got $200 worth of buybacks. That's another income source. Now you didn't pay any tax.
Oh, speaking of which,
some gun shops or gun shows. I've been to gun shows where maybe like a summer camp or a gun club or something is getting rid of their old inventory, and a bunch of like old rusty stuff, the gunsmith specials or something will be in there, and you can buy junk guns or whatever, broken guns, gunsmith special, something that you just want to practice gunsmithing on, for $50-$60. So if there's a gun buyback for 100, yeah, you can make $40 every gun, right?
so the grip modules are under 100, but the frame, the registered firearm part, that's like $300.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I meant. I'm just talking about the module part. I thought they were like 30.
That guy that brought like 200 3D printed auto sears to the gun buyback, can you imagine the pucker factor when he was driving those in his car to get there?
They talked about it. It's on the.
Holy fuck.
What's the name of that channel? I got the channel.
I don't know.
Here. I'm looking at my stuff. I'll find it in a second. But there's a channel, and they interview all these people. They do the 3D printing competition and that kind of stuff. That's where I started watching it. And they just talk about 3D printing all the time. So yeah, exactly. And the second one, that guy drove 2 counties over, and then he's like telling the people on the internet in the interview, right? Like, well, then they asked me if I traveled, and I was like, well, yeah. So he traveled 2 counties to get $1,000 worth of Sears to him. And he was like, I had a couple of receivers or a couple of guns that I didn't want anymore. And then I decided, since I'm going, I'm going to print up like 35 Sears and see what happens. And he just, like you said, just decided to drive across New York with tons of felonies. I don't understand this stuff. Oh, I'm going to give these up. Where'd you get them? Oh, I'm going to give them up. Okay, well, you're going to jail now for 10 years on each one.
But I probably wouldn't talk about that, doing that, because he's dealing with the state level he's a city level police department, and the ATF may not honor that. No questions asked.
Good point.
May not. There shouldn't be any. There's. How can they not? There's. I mean, how could they? There's no way that like. Oh well, our church says that we're not going to ask questions, or like our sheriff says we're not going to ask questions. Like, yeah, well, the federal government has an NFA. Like, yeah, they are.
Yeah.
If it's their job or whatever. I would think. I don't know how it works, but I would think that at least they would think they would go in there and do it. That's not a 2A audit I'd want to be part of.
Let me do this real quick.
Disco is dead. Disco is not dead. Disco is life.
So Wednesday nights, 10:30 p.m. Pacific, after the tactical gun quiz, is a Wednesday night mouse party. It's the chat just for a little more fun. And while I'm thinking about it, we'll do. TotalGearWebsites.com for 2A related patches, stickers, t-shirts, and 3D printed stuff. Or if you need help with web design or logo designs, gearwebsites.com. I should make a promo for Gizzard Gary. That way I don't have to say it. I can just play a promo. What we talk about is early bird chat, 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern, somewhere in between if you're in between. Jet's asking, how do you stay up so late? Grit and determination.
We hate being asleep. That's a problem. It's a waste of time. Sleeping away your life.
I fear the darkness. So, G-Webs, you got a chat tomorrow, don't you? Or
well, we got patch swap tomorrow. Let's quit
patch
doing
swap.
The Instagram one. We'll do that on Tuesdays now.
So why don't you explain the patch swap to people that might not know?
Well, ideally, it would have been a bunch of people were grabbing patches and then swapping them before we sent them out, but only where some people are buying them. So I don't know what it'll be. We're trying to figure out, it doesn't really work to have people just preemptively send in patches, I guess. So maybe it'll be something where people post patch panels and then just we create swaps and then follow up on swaps or something. But the idea was to try to use the internet or the live streaming part of the internet to have some fun trading patches. A lot of people had either duplicates or missed some and, had things that they were interested in trading around.
Gun toting pacifist asking, how is the pup?
Still here. Nobody wants him yet, but he's doing all right, I guess. Sleeping right now.
Seems like a sweet puppy.
It's pretty good. I can see why people like pugs. I've been watching different pug movies now to learn all about him. So he doesn't seem all that different than the ones in the movies. I thought, from people saying like his nose was smaller or his tail's too long or whatever, like maybe he's ugly and that's why people got rid of him. He's pretty dead on to what the movie pugs look like. So I'm not sure why they got rid of him.
Maybe he was just born in the wild.
I guess. Milo's girlfriend in Milo and Otis. No, wait, Otis's girlfriend in Milo and Otis was evidently just born in the winter in the woods. So I guess that can just happen. Pugs spontaneously get born in the woods. according to some movies.
Didn't they kill like 30 cats making that movie?
I was wondering because I had seen that movie. It's from like 1985, so I think I've seen it when I was a little kid or whatever that would have been. But I don't think I was a little kid actually in 1985. So whatever I seen that movie, I remember, and I hadn't thought about it since. Right? I watched it because it's got a pug in it,
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of pug puppies and stuff. At least in one part, they wing a cat like off of this cliff into the water.
Yeah.
And then in another part, they take the dog and throw him up on a hill with like a bunch of horses or cows or something. And I'm like, that's not CGI. They didn't have CGI back then. They just
No,
winged that dog.
they just
up
had a
on
bunch
that
of
hill.
dogs, it looks like.
So yeah, and then I went online and I was like, well, there's a couple of reasons. I wanted to see who the dog wranglers were because I want to see if they're the same as the Doberman wranglers. I've done similar projects looking at Doberman movies and stuff. So, because same thing. Like sometimes they're really nice and sometimes they're not really nice about the dogs. This was a Japanese-made movie. It took them 4 years worth of footage, and allegedly, although there's no documentation, yeah, it was heinous. Like they would do just horrible things, and it's probably one of the reasons that you hear about mostly CGI animal stuff. Like I think that was, if I remember, that was one of the. I think Beauty and the Beast. No, Black Beauty. Is that a horse movie that they
Yeah.
think they wailed on
Mhm.
horses, and then everybody was like, the movie was beautiful, but once we figured out what you did to horses in that movie, we're never watching a movie again. Like you better not ever. I mean, they used to do horrible stuff to horses too back in the day. So I think that in the 80s, right, is when they started being aware of like, we're never going to watch these movies again. Quit making movies where you do this stuff. But anyway, yeah, it was one of them.
It's like, wow, how did they get a pug to fight a bear? That was amazing. It's like they just had a pug fight a bear. That's how they did it.
They just kept throwing pugs at this bear. And
Bear
filmed it
ate the
for 4
pug.
years.
They were
A lot of
feeding the
editing.
bear pugs.
Yeah, seriously. I kept looking at this guy like, oh man, you can't do that. Don't do this.
80s were a different time.
Baron, you got anything going on? You gonna make any videos anytime soon?
I'm so confused with YouTube. I mean, I'm seeing people build guns on big channels. They're not getting in trouble. And I'm seeing like a little channel put a suppressor on a gun at a range, and they're getting channel strikes. So I got to figure out what's going on. Because I'd love to do my 458 SOCOM build video and upload it without getting my channel deleted.
Well, don't. So don't do that then. So it's not like they're out to get anybody, but they are random. It's a giant place, and they don't know, and it's not easy for them to know. So I'd suggest posting it somewhere else and just making a teaser on YouTube.
Like a trailer, yeah.
Yeah.
I think part of it is might be people reporting the videos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And that's difficult to know, right? Like you can get.
I might know someone that likes to report my content, by the way.
Well, exactly. How would you ever know? So you would never know if it's for some reason or because it was instigated. So that's why it's like, why
You could put it on guntube.org.
Yeah, exactly. And then a nice teaser video, or just edit it down into chunks. Maybe take all the parts that.
Yeah, because I got all the parts to build it. The only thing left is I need to pin and weld a flash suppressor for overall length. That's it.
Jet saying go to Rumble.
I might, but yeah, that's what I'm up to these days. That's a project that I gotta get done.
I ordered more parts for the 350 Legends, so when I get enough parts to do probably just do another short. And I still need to order. I'll probably put a scope on it. Probably just another Bushnell. Bushnells are great scopes for the price. They're not fancy, but to me the glass is clear and they work. I really like the Bushnells. I probably will never buy another LPVO like the one that's on the Bushmaster. I don't need to transition between close and far away, so that it's kind of a pointless to have for me.
Yeah, 3 to 9's fine to me. That's what I do.
And I don't won't say I regret it because it's whatever. I put everything up for a vote, and that's what voted, and it works. It's just not this. I either want close or I want far away. I don't need close and far away, personally. But I do really like the Bushmaster as a platform. It's fun. I like the kick. I like the loud. I like all of it. Yeah. Glad we built that one. So if you're up in the morning, go see Gary. Go hang out with Gary. And then later on in the day is what time are you going to do your patch swap thing?
Probably noon, so 2 p.m. Patrick.
So midday, check out GWeb and patch swapping.
Probably do some 3D stuff later on in the day if I can wiggle out some time too. I got I've been watching a lot of tutorials and stuff, and I got some stuff accomplished today making this fish. So I want to play with it more if I can. I can wiggle some time out tomorrow.
I saw that you did a video, but I didn't know what the fish video was.
I guess Matt in one of his chats was thinking if you stuck a dead fish on the back of a receiver extension, then it's not a brace and it's not a stock. So they were like, "Can you 3D print a thing that would fit on the back of a receiver extension?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then they're like, "All right, let's do that on Saturday afternoon." So I set it all up and did it, and then they didn't show up. So anyway, I made it, and then now it's printing. So I'm making it in. Oh wait, did it just snap off of there? Oh fucker. I'm making it in, what would that thing be called? That little AR that's in 22. I forget what they call it. The Wii tactical.
Oh
one.
yeah.
I'm making it in approximately that scale. It's like I'm not making the full size because it takes 2 hours to print this size.
I don't know. I think they would still call it a brace or a stock if you 3D printed it, but if it was an actual fish.
There you go.
Well, the idea is to print it and make it in a 3D software, print it, and then my thing would be, if I can follow through with it, take this 3D print, spray it with cooking spray, pour silicone rubber all over it, so I get a cavity of the fish.
Yeah.
Pull it out, spray it with spray, and then pour some rubber in there, and then get a rubber fish that fits on a receiver extension, and then it's just a rubber fish stuck on the back of a receiver extension.
What if you take an actual fish and dip it in
Lucite or something?
Plastic dip. Would that be a stock? Fish stock?
It would be gross. It would be what if you took fish stock, right? If you boiled the fish and turned it into fish stock and then dipped it in the receiver extension into it, would that be a stock because it's fish stock? Soup stock?
You make one out of frozen water. By the time it gets into the evidence room, it'll melt. No evidence.
So in other words, you're saying somebody should make a mold of a Magpul stock, pour it out of ice, and put that on a pistol.
Yep.
So you're saying somebody should take a full auto AR-15, make an ice receiver stock, and overthrow the government. Is that what I heard?
Sure. That's exactly what I said.
So on that point, appreciate everybody for tuning in, those who were watching and chatted, and those who maybe watched but didn't chat. I appreciate you all, and those who watch this in replay, appreciate you too. Leave a comment. Let me know you were there. And I hope, guess I need to go find my thingy. There we go. And I hope everybody has a good night and good rest of the day.
You still here? It's over. Go home.